on a 2-week tour of France. France, so easy to fall in love with. Every scrumptious little cute. This is as the end goal of the game of catching up with Lewis Hamilton. Yes, pilgrimage is a grandiose phrase. It is a slow process, just the same, travelling around France for 2 weeks. But it could be described as celebrity stalking, really, I suppose. Or perhaps we could align ourselves with paparazzi. It's not much different, is it? But of equal draw to this part of the boat from the trip is the iconic, the famous Monaco Grand Prix, older than the Formula 1 calendar itself. I confess that I'm not so much into the racing myself. Growing up, I used to be enthralled and grotesquely fascinated by the crashes, and a couple of people have ended up in the harbour. It's a short circuit, 1 minute 10 seconds to get around it. Well, you can increase that by half as much again if it's wet, but we're off to Monaco, one of those last city-states.
These are the masters of speed.
Lewis Hamilton has got the fastest ever time. The wet weather time is about the same as the nearby French Grand Prix fastest lap record. All Grand Prix are about 50 odd laps and about 300 odd kilometres. Monaco's the only one that's allowed to be shorter. It takes longer. I thought I'd chosen one to get your money's worth. It's an expensive game, even for spectators. We've stayed nearby, just a couple of train stops away, Villefranche-sur-Mer, I think it is. A very generous sized flat, looking out onto the sea with those stripy awnings. And we'll be extending our paparazzi-like celebrity stalking by going off to the Cannes Film Festival afterwards. The French Grand Prix circuit, slightly under 6 kilometres. Monaco, slightly over 3 kilometres. 2 miles to get round. But our Circuit de France is 3,000 or 4,000 kilometres in our vintage sports car over the 2-week period. A Lotus-based frame made of aluminium with a Vauxhall saloon car engine, OEM from the manufacturer. Stripped back, it's a lightweight machine, already down on the ground, and with a bit of agility to get into it. And over the sill, and once you're in there, you feel every lump and bump of the road.
This is Formula One.
Verstappen or Leclerc that gets away the best. It's lights out and away we go. Leclerc reacts very well, but Verstappen always ready alongside him. Lewis Hamilton ahead of Sergio Perez. Here into turn one we go. Charles Leclerc ahead of Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton ahead of Perez, George Russell making a challenge on Perez and ahead of Lando Norris. There is Fernando Alonso swooping around the outside and up into 4th place.
There is the Paul Ricard Formula 1 circuit at La Castellette, which is in Provence. I suppose we're doing a tour of France, aren't we? This is the French Grand Prix in the Formula 1 calendar, or should I say it was, between 2018 and 2022. It's been replaced with Las Vegas in America. But I'm sure it'll be back again. It was built in 1969 with Jackie Stewart winning in 1971. It has had a long hiatus. Ricard is the aniseed drink. When you add water to it, it goes cloudy, a bit sort of like absinthe, really, I suppose. It's like the national drink in France, and it certainly used to be. It's also managed by Paul Ricard and the family, an island off the Côte d'Azur, their own private island. The Castellet, the medieval town, village, and the racetrack are not far from Jerez on the coast, that you can get to just a 10-kilometre drive south. French Riviera. The French Riviera? Perhaps they should rename it that. The French Riviera one of the most revered coastlines in the world, thanks to the beautiful beaches, pretty harborside towns, great food, and if you fancy it, incredible local wines. Apart from the racing action, that's why you'd go there. The French Riviera, not so well known. As you can see though from some of the video insets, it's a track for drivers rather than spectators. It's got an even distribution of high, medium and low speed corners. It's a key reason why it's one of the most used test circuits in the world, and typically good weather is another. Formula 1 drivers love the 290 kilometres an hour right-hander at Signes and the 5G joyride of the following Bressant Bend, while the circuit's 2018 return to the Formula 1 calendar showed that the French Grand Prix is a bit of an overtaking gem. Even with the sure thing of DRS, the electric input overdrive thing that they have to recharge as they drive, it's only in certain zones, overtaking's too much of a rare thing in Formula 1 still. If and when it returns to its end of July slot, where do you want to sit to watch the race? The chicane series of grandstands put you at the best overtaking point on the track, as Sebastian Vettel proved during the 2018 fight rack from 17th to 5th. While if you want to be closer to the fun and friendly Paul Ricard paddock, bag seats at the Virage DuPont stands to watch cars making their way through the final corner before blasting away down the main straight and taking that checkered flag to finish. But we're off to Monaco for our Monaco Grand Prix pilgrimage. Great for spectators, you're close to the action, not so great for overtaking. Historically, rather good for crashes, but I don't know if you're allowed to say. Of issues. Can you see France in a 2-week vacation? Is one of the questions we're trying to ask ourselves here, and many Americans think they can see the whole of Europe in a 2-week vacation. They can't. Get a flavour of, get to know, two very different things. If you're excluding Paris and the Ile-de-France, which is all that France is, in a way, yes, you can get round the country and start to feel like you're getting to know it. Its varied history and landscape, climate, people and customs give it a very different air in very different areas. All over, not so long ago, were city-states. We're off to Monaco, one of those last city-states, theoretically outside of France. It's on the bulbous protrusion of Provence that has its own special microclimate, slightly extended away from the Alps. Not in a rain shadow, it has more than its fair share of sunshine hours per year. Or is that just sales patter to accentuate its tax haven status? What is the enclave of Monaco and Monte Carlo like? And perhaps, to some more importantly, what is the Monaco Formula 1 like to experience? What you pay for your seats and who you're brushing shoulders with can be very important to that. A ginger-haired national radio DJ with a penchant for powdered drugs and young girl, they married, ran a national radio auction for Formula 1 experience day at weekend at Monaco that money couldn't buy. The landed gentleman that used to go to the same riding stables and the local Cotswold hunt offset his bid as a business expense and really did live like royalty. However, with every F1 ticket, and you will need a ticket, you won't be able to see through the fence. You will see one slide that I've included, one photo, which does show you just how little you'll be able to see, and you give yourself a structural problem trying to gaze through for that number of hours as well. But every ticket includes a pit walk, and the pit walk gives you just some little window on, well, the life of paparazzi for one thing. We did also experience that in Cannes Film Festival. But on the pit walk you really are given time, up close and personal. spend tens of thousands and cajole someone into renting your apartment above swimming pool corner or something. But up on the grassy knoll, there's a tree leaning out, windswept, that you can relax against, point your camera, and get €1,000,000 views. You can chat to like-minded people and go along with a prepared picnic, not in the heat of the stadium-like atmosphere. Obliged to wave at Max Verstappen orange colours, perhaps. As it was, I had 3 Polish guys pulling on my trouser leg most of the time that I was up in that little tree, thinking it wasn't some first come, first served thing. It was just a take turns, it's only natural. For all the world to me, the 3 Polish gentlemen were never going to take a reciprocal generosity if the tables were the other way round and they'd got up a little bit earlier in the morning. Up on the grassy knoll, you do have to stake your claim to the best spot. Take a picnic chair if you're up by the handrail. The bank is steep and you will slip down. Municipality itself, with its... You could walk from side to side of the municipality on the deck to deck of the multi-million-pound yachts, I think. The harbour is packed so dense. I've been here before though, it's certainly not like this all year round. It is for the festivals, shall we call them, of which there are a few. But considering all the semi-skyscraper-like buildings, it's not that highly occupied. The little bijou chez moi flats, apartments, condos, are only occupied theoretically for the number of days a year it takes to qualify for the tax status. And then they venture out into the greater hinterland that is France. Provence, formerly part of Turin. Of course you can fly here, and there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't, other than this is a pilgrimage. The foothills of the Pyrenees. Almost Spain offers a high number of sunshine hours per year, and often high rainfall straight off the Atlantic. I went for where that rain falls as snow, in the Eastern Alps, south of Geneva, Savoy, not traditionally France, traditionally Italy. Linked by a mountain range to Nice and Caen, but only really to the Côte d'Azur by the River Rhône, and an equally developed motorway east. Hours of L-shaped motorway to the Côte d'Azur, 10 times faster than taking the Alpine route or the route Napoleon. It's also a route Hannibal is supposed to have taken somewhere, but no one's too sure. Mount Ventoux is given a mythical status, a bit like a yew tree in a old churchyard before the church. This was a optical line towards the end of the Ice Age, where pilgrims would head from Eastern Europe through, skirting the coast of the Mediterranean, to northwest Spain and Portugal. Santiago de Compostela pilgrimage route. I have only a cursory interest in Formula One in that it helps me fall asleep nicely on a Sunday afternoon after my lunch. Roast pork, beef or lamb and nice crispy potatoes. But for my partner, this is a pilgrimage to Monaco Grand Prix and Lewis Hamilton win. It will be a Lewis Hamilton win, everything is set, and everyone will be going home happy. Villefranche-sur-Mer. In a proper sports car, if you can get into it, you're low slow, you are sat on the floor and it's hard sprung suspension. You know about every mile that you're travelling. I'm not saying the roads are bad in France at all, certainly the péage, that's their business. We did want to take the B roads, the back roads, and broadly speaking, though there were exceptions, I was pretty much limited to about 4 hours of travel at a time. Now at 90 miles an hour, that's a fair distance. Straight off the ferry, you're fresh and enthusiastic. And you think, looking at the Pentagon, I'd love to say, hang a left into the Loire. So that's where you'd already be up to Belgique and Germany. In one go, through the night. get most of the way to Bordeaux, and there for breakfast. Petit déjeuner. Now, Bordeaux is a pilgrimage in itself for many of us, worth its weight in claret. This is perhaps one of the first instances that you get the sense of expatriates. Certainly if you're in the wine and hospitality business, this would be a bit of a mecca for you in training terms, same as you might think central London restaurants might be. And cultivating your French language skills would help you with your wealthy Russian private clients. Maybe looking to go into that yacht charter business, or just work your way up and through sommelierism, that elitist accompaniment to elitist food. There are many small parcels of vineyards come up for sale, and there's many an expat that's wanted the lifestyle choice of a vineyard. The social cachet of it all. You can meet the sons and daughters of these people that are the face of the business in Bordeaux. Now, Bordeaux is on a river estuary, a bit like the Mersey, I'm going to say, a bit like Liverpool is on the Mersey. It's not really by the seaside as such, but there is, not a million miles away, Dune de Pilat. There's also La Rochelle and the Ile de Ré, where apparently half of Paris disappears off to every summer. We're on the west coast of France. The Gironde River on a map almost seems like it's been windswept away from perpendicular to the Atlantic winds. Dune de Pilat is like a huge expanse, like a city, but just of sand. The campsites and trees behind it. There's an enthusiastic fraternity of kite surfers. But really, it's so windy so much of the time. The majority of Dune de Pilat and the extended zone is good for nothing. Paragliders, I pass over that coastal zone. There are slightly hippie aspects of Bordeaux, the city. It's got a feel to it, a little bit like Bristol perhaps, but without the edge. Privilege and money, yes, but working. Not the idleness and vacant of Ile de Ré, La Rochelle appendage. There's good reason why there's so many British in Bordeaux, and really the Loire as well, and the Dordogne further south. Real British enclaves within the Pentagon, and traditionally Brittany, I understand, to the north. But don't know anything about it. It's Cornwall as far as I'm concerned.
Wins the French Grand Prix and comes home to
And we're using our, in case you're curious to what it is, it's a vintage sports car now, a Vauxhall VX220 that at what might prove to be the height of global civilization before 2008-2009 was a mass market manufacturer's version of the Lotus Elise, based on an aluminium chassis and a saloon car engine, naturally aspirated, and a turbo. It's got a zip to it at that golden sweet spot on the rev counter. Very reminiscent of the Formula 1 car. Idling, it sounds a bit more like a diesel, but then so do Formula 1 cars. This is how we got here, 1,000 miles through France over several days in the vintage sports car. Different people's reactions in different times to the car, it's quite curious. Le Mans 24-hour race is in the same 2-week period that Monaco is, and there's a lot of vintage cars that come over from Britain, a lot of them on the backs of trailers towed and then just driven about locally, but many a ferry over a week-long period that ends up as a vintage sports car rally. And for very little outlay, I sort of became part of that exclusive club for a short time. It's a funny feeling, being given the time of day and engaged with by people that wouldn't really give you a second look. A bit like what would usually be a client and a bed and breakfast host relationship becomes something close to equals with this common interest. even if there's £100,000 difference between the two vehicles. The views of Monaco and Monte Carlo are very closely guarded. New development, from the experience of trying to get work on proposed new projects that often get no further than feasibility. Understandably, dozens of millionaires in their semi-high-rise do go to counter-studies against a planning permission in order to maintain their sea view. I mean, you're going to, aren't you? Everyone values a sea view, an occluded sea view. And architecturally, in space making, the actual cove of Monaco, well, the medieval roads layout does help hugely, but it's got the opportunity of enclosing spaces within, suggesting spaces within the tower block, and creating interest on the vista that you get from cliff top, lower down sections, and from the sea, from the yacht. It needs to be beautiful, not just a property development dream. And there are other tax havens in the world. They need to keep it real. But I do think there could have been architectural decoration and quality in the 1960s and 70s, perhaps the heyday. But at street level, there are plenty of cute little details and sweet, intriguing vistas that make you want to explore further. And there is an intimacy. You're not blasted by funneled winds. But what route and detours did we take on our north-south pilgrimage? Pretty much from Goodwood Festival of Speed to Fête de Vite. While France does. So it's nice to revisit why you initially fell in love.
Come away with me in the night. Come away with me and I will write you a song.
Spontaneity like this presents a sort of le minimal level of control to your planning of your tour of France. But really, le minimal refers to something else in France. This is rather difficult to explain to an American and difficult on YouTube, which plays its own role in hypocritically commoditising the human body. Are you sat comfortably? Then I shall begin, and the chair will bill you by the minute to maintain that comfort. Everyone in France will understand le minimal basically as a G-string, a thong, a piece of minimalist underwear. This is all you want or need to wear to the beach. It's hot and you want to feel the sea breeze against you. Le minimal is appropriate through several transitions. I mean, there's the lying static on the beach and turning over occasionally the page of your book and yourself to roast the other side. There's the walk to the ocean to have a dip. The ocean off the Dune de Pilat here, rather than the Mediterranean Sea for much of the holiday. And there's the walk to the beach through the trees. The walk through the trees might likely be just a car park, or it might be past a secluded campsite, or possibly past a few provisions shops. All of these are really fairly acceptable just for le minimal in terms of attire. When it comes to the beach bar, yes, probably almost always the bar part. The restaurant part, not so much. It would have its own minimal. Some sort of fashion handkerchief tied over to cover the chest. A bar, you're most likely to be stood at, really. Everything's a little bit more wipe clean. However, a restaurant, you're going to be sat down. You're probably going to have linen tablecloths and napkins. You don't want to put anyone else off their food. You don't want any chance of anything dangling in your food, or anyone else's. And the perception of hygiene.
Come away with me in the night. Come away.
For centuries, Bordeaux and the Loire were hours in the days of knights in shining armour. The industry and currency were largely established by us, the British. Claret and brandy for centuries having more use as a legal tender than gold coins or any sort of early promissory note. Coins could be clipped. Yes, there was a lot of cooperation towards the Holy Land during the Crusades, but the British and the French squabbled kingdom by kingdom for centuries over the Loire and Bordeaux region, far inland, and then beaten back until just the island of Bordeaux was all that lasted on the mainland of France, until all those base estates that gave rise to all those dramatic forts and castles, chateaux, turrets, boats, local marriages and allegiances changed. Centuries of slow change until we were beaten back with battles, but still a sphere of influence. Historically, there were two ways you could avoid the Barbary pilots and the Spanish Main. The fortified hilltop city of Carcassonne guarded one along the base of the Pyrenees. Just like Genoa, school children in Britain relish reading how the Mongol Empire helped extend their territory by flinging plague victims' dead bodies on catapults into the walls of the city. I often have to point out that there were three main plagues, bubonic plagues, one about 500 AD, another one in medieval times, 1213, and then there was one mainly in China and India in 1880. I suppose we should add COVID onto that now. That biological warfare has got more sophisticated means of transmission than catapults over walls. Probably because they know those cute little Disney choo-choo trains could just be piled up and send them on out automatically. Bordeaux wine villages, don't miss them. Don't have to do all of them, but you need to do some of them. Just in part, so you get different flavour to the Rhône or the Bourgogne, Burgundy wine regions. Do three. In Burgundy, of course, Dijon, and if you're in the southern Rhône, you could do much worse than Aix-en-Provence, but you might want to go for Avignon. Try and fit in UNESCO Pont de Garde, but really that's more relaxing thing. You have to give it a day. You might not have a day, but that's still a long drive off yet. The whole of the south-west coast of the Gulf on the bottom edge of the Pentagon of France, it's mussels and oyster beds. It's long, low, muddy, tight region, perfect for the shellfish. I know you think Monaco's for the sailfish, don't you? Shellfish. Miles and miles and miles of coastal drive, right by the edge of the sea, really, and village after village, but all factory-farmed terraces of posts in mud. The mud does give way to proper sand somewhere around Sète, which is the nudist beach sort of area, nudist village, nudist town, slowly being commoditised by swingers. Drive on by and leave the mudmatisation of what's given freely. Art will eat itself, or at least be misrepresented if it doesn't explain what it's doing at every available opportunity. These are silly questions that go against its core values. Mirepoix, where we stayed, an old timber-framed town with wooden beamed cloisters, not cloisters really, arcades around the town square on the ground floor that protect people from the elements, or protect the market produce in days gone by from the rain, was where we stayed before this long coastal blast. Sweetest town, lovely restaurants, and a nice hippie vibe to some of the street musicians. It feels homely, in so much that it's void of the mercenary touristy aspect that Carcassonne has. You will eventually reach Bouches de Rhône, mouth of the River Rhône. Spain, yes, of course, but that's what you expect, big expanses of beach with perfectly accessible beach bars. Of course, there's the private hire problem around Marbella, but the older money of a France beach holiday was an eye-opener for me. But the Corniche Road is free. In one go, through the night, you get most of the way to Bordeaux, and there for breakfast. Petit déjeuner. Now, Bordeaux is a pilgrimage in itself for many of us, worth its weight in claret. This is perhaps one of the first instances that you get a sense of expatriates. Certainly if you're in the wine hospitality business, this would be a bit of a mecca for you in training time, same as you might think central London restaurants might be. And cultivating your French language skills would help you with your wealthy Russian private clients.
It's like you're on ice at this stage. There's no way he's going to stop that.
Now it's your percent.
Sean.
You may be looking to go into that yacht charter business, or just work your way up and through sommelierism, that elitist accompaniment to elitist food.
Petite fille du soleil, le matin va venir. Petite fille du soleil, je dois partir. Petite fille du soleil.
The big conurbation is beyond Savona of Genoa and its international boat crowd, and whom provides for it in those narrow, deep dark streets, devoid of too much in the way of daylight, sun hours per year, seedy atmosphere back streets, maze almost jammed between the historic UNESCO main boulevards towards the town shopping centre, which is good, and the port of palatial pleasure passes, and the seediness that providing for them can generate. Nice has none of that, Cannes even less so. But in that same week, there is the Cannes Film Festival, and if you stand in a paparazzi crowd with a camera, you really get the sense of what it would mean to have, well, it's difficult to believe that people do that as a job. And could you do it as a hobby? It's all elbows, it really is all elbows, jostling for position that you perceive from your knowledge of behaviour that someone else, another living person, is going to facilitate. But you're only ever going to be part of the second-rate crowd. The real photos that end up in the papers, they're all staged. It's not a paying for prime position thing. There's people up with the concierge that are on the payroll, the promotion, paparazzi. But hysterically funny to experience the craziness just for a few minutes.
Petite fille du soleil, le matin va venir. Petite fille du soleil, je dois partir.
I've said it before and I'll say it again, take that Corniche Road, it's beautiful, but be a bit more careful than that. Hollywood actress and Monaco princess. But do make the road look good, take the vintage car. Far down below the Corniche Road, there is the Côte d'Azur, big long expanses of sand. We didn't visit Hossegor and Biarritz on the west coast, they would be the surf beaches. I'll point out, if you've never really been in a sports car before, how important that windscreen behind your head is. It's important to be able to control the wind, so you're not bashed to death by it, made ill by the buffeting. It's sort of like a science to the wind flow. Adrian Newey used to be the guy that controlled God, really, as it travelled around the fairings of the Formula 1 cars. If your two-seater doesn't have the wind screen in front of and behind you, and you can take off your soft Targa-style roof, then you've made the wrong choice of sports car and you're making it hard work for yourself, really. But just a bungee, you will sort of need a headscarf or a hat type thing as well, but it should stay on. There are many small parcels of vineyard come up for sale, and there's many an expat that's wanted the lifestyle choice of a vineyard. The social cachet of it all. You can meet the sons and daughters of these people that are the face of the business in Bordeaux. Now, Bordeaux is on a river estuary, a bit like the Mersey, I'm going to say, a bit like Liverpool is on the Mersey. It's not really by the seaside as such, but there is, not a million miles away, Dune de Pilat, and there's also La Rochelle and Ile de Ré, where apparently half of Paris disappears off to every summer. We're on the west coast of France. The Gironde River on a map seems like it's been windswept away from perpendicular to the Atlantic winds. Dune de Pilat is like a huge expanse, like a city, but just of sand, with a few campsites and trees behind it. There's an enthusiastic fraternity of kite surfers, but really, it's so windy so much of the time. The majority of Dune de Pilat in the extended zone is good for nothing. Paragliders, I pass over that coastal zone. There are slightly hippie aspects of Bordeaux, the city. It's got a feel to it, a little bit like Bristol perhaps, but without the edge. Privilege and money, yes, but working. Not the idleness and vacant of Ile de Ré, the La Rochelle appendage. There's good reason why there's so many British in Bordeaux. And really the Loire as well, and the Dordogne further south. Real British enclaves within the Pentagon. And traditionally Brittany, I understand, to the north. But don't know anything about it, it's Cornwall as far as I'm concerned. So it's nice to revisit why you initially fell in love. While France does use an investigating procurer judge judicial system, primarily it's a hue and cry based on the social consensus of the majority. And that can pendulum on a number. Even though Rambouillet is Paris. But if you decide to live there, it can be a demanding, high-maintenance relationship. The gossip can be hard work. The municipal that form the control of the interactions of who are brought up through school to be good citizens and maintain themselves in the same role, the same job for really much of their career. They know their jobs inside out. Progression opportunities can be limited, so they concern themselves with their interactions. They're not self-obsessed like the British. They're trained in something and they have to stay in that. Retraining is rare. They concern themselves with their social status in terms of gossip. These good citizens form like a Stasi of informants. Perhaps it's a hangover from the Second World War, but I think it's ages old.
Toi, mon amour, mon ami,
How's the vintage VX220 doing? Hasn't missed a beat. I did manage to give myself a bit of a fright when I looked down at the temperature needle in the drive the track traffic jam that it is around Monaco. Traffic jam to get in a traffic jam while you're driving around, and whatever time you get there, you need to keep the track clear. I was able to walk around literally in bare feet when we were doing the pit walk. For the whole, I walked the whole track as well as drove it, and I could walk it in bare feet without a second thought. So clean, but naturally aspirated. Engine, if it's not moving, it does risk overheating. But even on a hot day, I think they've built in plenty of tolerance. Put the heater on a hot day, save the car, and not yourself, if you're really worried. Of course, when you're parking, leave the top down, have nothing on display, then you're not going to get the lid ripped open to try and get something inside. The thief having the perception that there must be something somewhere worth having. No,
c'est long et c'est court, ça dure toujours, on s'en souvient. Sur la croisette, Nicole Croisy lance un grand rire de pacotille. Que de belles filles. 15 jours à Cannes, tout est possible. Dans les coulisses du festival, pénétrer d'un vent de scandale.
but we're leaving our Villa Fraîche, some Airbnb, where we've got to know so many pit crew just from having a chat on the train where they on their way to theirs. YouTube and Airbnb, the option for obese people. Our host, a huge old lady with a 30-year-old boyfriend and a sea view investment to rent. Meeting Lewis, the cherry on the cake for her. The partner, not the Airbnb host. There's very little similarity. The win, a given, but we're heading
Depuis longtemps, feuille de Noël en bikini avec ton meilleur ami. Où sont donc passées les starlettes qui sont ces salopants en goguettes de malheur sur la côte d'Azur? C'est que jamais rien ne dure.
north now. The Grand Prix is over. QR codes have made me able to discover a new wine village really worth visiting. A really fruity, fresh red wine that you can drink cold. But you might want to stop at Le Hermitage, Cave de Tain. You might want to hot foot it straight to Lyon. Lyon's got a food hall, a covered market. It could be argued that this covered market is the culinary capital of the world. But make sure you get there between the right hours. 12 till 2. To make the most of it. And you'll be heading north from there and get a good night's sleep. Old Town Lyon is worth seeing though. Route d'Or and Bourgogne, Burgundy, Dijon will be our next stop. Stay as centrally as you can. You can see the money's mainly from wine. It's not far from the Champagne region. Not that sort of architectural expression doesn't just come from the money of mustard. Beaune is a small town that you might want to consider as an alternative, which has a good mustard shop if you're interested. We needed to carry on further in a bit of a hurry. Got to get back for work.
Vers les docks, le poids et l'ennui, ma courbe le dos. Ils arrivent le vendredi, de fruits les bateaux. Ils viennent du bout du monde important avec eux les idées vagabondes au reflet de ciel bleu, de mirages. Traînant à parfum poivré de pays inconnus et d'éternels étés où l'on vit presque nu sur les plages. Moi qui n'ai connu toute ma vie que le ciel du Nord. J'aimerais débarbouiller ces grilles environ de peur. Emmenez-moi au bout de la terre, emmenez-moi au pays des merveilles. Il me semble que la misère serait moins pénible au soleil. Dans les bars à la tombée du jour avec les marins. Quand on parle de vie et d'amour, un verre à la main. Je parle sur les choses et soudain ma pensée m'enlève et me dépose un merveilleux été sur la grève. Où je vois tant dans les bras l'amour qui comme un fou court devant de moi et je me prends au cou de mon rêve. Quand les bars ferment que les marins rejoignent leur port.
You do, I know you do. Go on holiday for a week or two and you don't want to leave. But if you're honest, there's more than that. You consider whether you could live there or not. You give it headspace, probably if you weren't working, if you were retired. What you see is the height of the season though. Everything closes when the schools go back. There is a long school holiday. There are a lot of public holidays, but it's almost as short and brief a season as Greece. But that really just means that you've got all that to yourselves. Sure, it doesn't have quite the same buzz when it's just Northern Europeans. You might even see business opportunities, which might be deceptive. The French are quite particular in their ways. You might do a fantasy property hunt and realise there's a bargain to be had, but there might be some practical hurdles in that process. But that's not the half of it. You've got to learn another language fluently. In your Anglo-Saxon world, you make friends partly by being flash. Buying friends in France is very transparent. It doesn't really come off. There has to be some really quite significant push factors back home, as well as just a pull factor of that bargain. A bit like the analogy of the vintage VX220 sports car, getting you into that club, if only at entry level. You will find that you become part of really quite an elitist expat community, but the frequency of those interactions might be little more than seasonal, perhaps not satisfying enough. if you're looking to be integrated into an expat community, you really probably want to be looking at the Spanish classes. In France, your children will be accepted as locals much more than in Italy, where it would take generations, and where old money isn't really so clean of conscience. There's no getting away from it. There's a certain je ne sais quoi, almost class to France that the juntas, the dictatorships of Spain and Italy just don't bring. But there is often little patience for that class, beyond the Merci of Paris. In large part because so much of France is that rural conservative with a small c.
J'ai encore rêvé d'elle, c'est bête, elle n'a rien fait pour ça. Elle n'est pas vraiment belle, c'est mieux, elle est faite pour moi. Tout en douceur, juste pour mon cœur. Je l'ai rêvé si fort que les draps s'en souviennent. Je dormais dans son corps, bercé par ses je t'aime. Si je pouvais me réveiller à ses côtés, si je savais la trouver.
If you just wanted to see the whole architectural style of France in one town, you could do much worse than visit Charles and Champagne for a few days, very enthusiastic on Bastille Day, all the bands around town. You've got the timber framing expression of medieval times, you've got carved stonework, and you've got steel and glass that is used spatially, not uncreatively, nicely detailed, not just the architectural expression of mere sculptural building is what you get for the most part throughout France. I suppose it's good that the money is spent on making an architectural expression that people see in an industrial or business or commercial park area, grabbing your attention from the side of the road as you drive by for the advertising of that product. But it is just a sculptural object in isolation, a bit like a pyramid, an Egyptian pyramid is a sculptural object in a desert. France has managed to keep its old towns, its little villages, but there is a dross of the same commercial shopping parks outside of cities that you have to wade through to get there. Troyes is one of those rare timber-framed jewels that you just don't get in Germany anymore. Troyes is towards the north of France, and it's not Bruges, nothing like as cute, but it has a lot going for it, and it's worth a comfortable night's sleep and a good meal. It's so hard to judge the timings of your ferry booking, even from as far north as Troyes. It could be a few hours blast to the North French coast. So if you've done Bruges on the way out, or recently, I recommend Ghent as a stop just an hour away from Calais or Dunkirk. Yes, I know it's Belgium, but at least they don't speak Dutch. Max Verstappen's Orange Army just got too close to comfort this year, challenging Lewis for pole. I haven't been...
Un sosie de Juliette Gréco, en cette année le Negrasco. C'est un jeune dandy décadent qui aime les cocktails au rhum blanc. Dans une voiture décapotable, dans ton beau costume estival, à l'aise dans la démesure, as-tu trouvé l'amour? Au bras d'Isabelle Adjani, tu toises la foule et
accelerating and repping through the engine whenever there's a good straight run out of a curve. So the cheaper petrol in Belgium's always welcome. There's increasingly a lot of Tankstellen-like places that you only rarely got that are just card-in self-service places. Go for them. I know, you want to tip the guy that comes out and sticks his nozzle in your fuel hole, but that level of service went out with Brigitte Bardot, I think.
Until then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's rob a bank. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Next question in the screen. Comme ci, comme ça, ouah, ouah, ouah. J'adore vos amis. Oh, I don't like the dream. And I'll be a vagabond. A small thing in the big mood. Together we're better, better. Let's rob a bank. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Next question in the screen. Let's rob a bank. Wah, wah, wah. Next question in the screen.
Where to stop? Where to detour to get a flavour of the Alps? Well, obviously Chamonix is quite accessible. Whether that's a real alpine experience with global warming these days, you may need to take a drive up the Tarentaise Valley, perhaps Courchevel, Meribel, Val Thorens, but Bourg Saint-Maurice is worth that little bit further. It's summer, don't worry too much about Val d'Isère. Glacier skiing isn't for the faint-hearted. Yes, you can most definitely fall in love with France on a 2-week holiday, but don't spend all your time in Paris. Give that a whole week for itself. I wouldn't say by any means that I discovered the chateaux of the Loire Valley. I think Paris and the Loire Valley, that's going to be another 2-week holiday. Get to know it better. The vintage VX220's got a fair size boot, 2 holdalls, 2 other bags, and my bottle souvenirs, red wine, to get to know France better. Back to the grind.
Come away with me in the night. Come away with me, and I will write you a song.
Spontaneity like this presents a sort of le minimal level of control to your planning of your Tour of France. But really, le minimal refers to something else in France. This is rather difficult to explain to an American and difficult on YouTube, which plays its own role in hypocritically commoditising the human body. Are you sat comfortably? Then I shall begin, and the chair will bill you by the minute to maintain that comfort. Everyone in France will understand le minimal basically as a G-string, a thong, a piece of minimalist underwear. This is all you want or need to wear to the beach. It's hot, and you want to feel the sea breeze against you. Le minimal is appropriate through several transitions. I mean, there's the lying static on the beach, and turning over occasionally the page of your book and yourself to roast the other side. There's the walk to the ocean to have a dip. The ocean off the Dune de Pilat here, rather than the Mediterranean Sea for much of the holiday. And there's the walk to the beach through the trees. The walk through the trees might likely be just a car park, or it might be past a secluded campsite or possibly past a few provisions shops. All of these are really fairly acceptable just for le minimal in terms of attire. When it comes to the beach bar, yes, probably almost always the bar part. The restaurant part, not so much. It would have its own minimal. Some sort of fashion handkerchief tied over to cover the chest. A bar, you're most likely to be stood at, really. Everything's a little bit more wipe clean. However, a restaurant, you're going to be sat down. You're probably going to have linen tablecloths and napkins. You don't want to put anyone else off their food. You don't want any chance of anything dangling in your food, or anyone else's. And the perception of hygiene.
Come away with me in the night. Come away with me.
It's a fair distance. Straight off the ferry, you're in a proper sports car. If you can get into it, you're low slung. You are sat on the floor and it's hard sprung suspension. You know about every mile that you're travelling. I'm not saying the road's bad in France at all. Certainly the péage, that's their business. We did want to take the B roads, the back roads. And broadly speaking, though there were exceptions, I was pretty much limited to about 4 hours of travel at a time. Now, at 90 miles an hour, that's...
On me dit que nos vies ne valent pas grand-chose, elles passent en un instant comme fanent les roses. On me dit que le temps qui glisse est un salaud, que de nos chagrins il s'en fait des manteaux. Pourtant quelqu'un m'a dit que tu m'aimes encore. C'est quelqu'un qui m'a dit que tu m'aimes encore. Serait-ce possible alors?
Fully douche in the mountains, the trendy bar restaurant. You have to book ahead for that as well. But when you're booking your Airbnb or something, you're instantly very good for the consumer, absolutely awful for the person renting out their place. Booking your restaurants ahead, one of the main attractions of your visit possibly, is a bit more involved than booking your accommodation stay, displaying perhaps that bit too much control issue that friends may rib you about, or just too polite to address it. The spontaneity of being able to camp in a camping car, or even just camping in a tent like the 6 guys did in their first affordable holiday to the south of France at 16, 17.
Mais qui est-ce qui m'a dit que toujours tu m'aimais? Je ne me souviens plus, c'était tard dans la nuit. Je ressens encore la foi, mais je ne vois plus les traits. Il vous aime, c'est secret, lui dites pas que je vous l'ai dit. Tu vois, quelqu'un m'a dit que tu m'aimais encore. Mais l'a-t-on vraiment dit que tu m'aimais encore? Serait-ce possible alors?
Some of the péage at least. And there is a website where you can find out, but it doesn't have the level of details of which péage air have the showers as well as the toilets. These well-appointed 72-hour stopovers aren't quite so frequent as they are in Bavaria in Germany, but they're good. There is plenty of opportunity to stay in beachside car parks. Spontaneity like this presents a sort of le minimal level of control to your planning of your tour of France. But really, le minimal refers to something else in France. This is rather difficult to explain to an American and difficult on YouTube, which plays its own role in hypocritically commoditising the human body. Are you sat comfortably? Then I shall begin, and the chair will bill you by the minute to maintain that comfort. Every mouth of the River Rhone, where it's weak traders, the gallons have gone up, the River Rhone little bit, modern slip Everyone in France will understand le minimal, basically as a G-string, a thong, a piece of minimalist underwear. This is all you want or need to wear to the beach. It's hot, and you want to feel the sea breeze against you. Le minimal is appropriate through several transitions. There's the lying static on the beach, and turning over occasionally the page of your book and yourself to roast the other side. There's the walk to the ocean to have a dip, the ocean off the Dune de Pilat here, rather than the Mediterranean Sea for much of the holiday. And there's the walk to the beach through the trees. The walk through the trees might likely be just a car park, or it might be past a secluded campsite, or possibly past a few provision shops. All of these are really fairly acceptable just for le minimal in terms of attire. When it comes to the beach bar, yes, probably almost always the bar part. The restaurant part, not so much. It would have its own minimal, some sort of fashion handkerchief tied over to cover the chest. A bar, you're most likely to be stood at, really. Everything's a little bit more white clean. However, at a restaurant, you're going to be sat down, probably going to have linen tablecloths and napkins. You don't want to put anyone else off their food. You don't want any chance of anything dangling in your food, or anyone else's. And the perception of hygiene is paramount, really, in a restaurant, isn't it? No moist areas on the cushions, please. So, ladies and gents may be expected to put a sarong or a pair of shorts over their le minimal. The sarong can be long, it can be tied around under the arms, around the neck. Things can poke out, but a casual, inadvertent glance from another diner just to see who they're in the same restaurant with isn't going to disturb anyone's hygiene standards. This same restaurant level of le minimal is perfectly fine all the way around the beach town. Places up in the hills. That beach town may be a city, but you're free, and this freedom is given freely for your own personal level of comfort. Too much American outlook is based on, or certainly has the effect of, conforming your comfort. And too many teenage-orientated movies really propagate an unhealthy body consciousness. Time to grow up, America. You're not India. France. So easy to fall in love with. Every scrumptious little cute morsel of it.
Dans une taverne du vieux Londres, où se retrouvaient des étrangers, nos voix criblées de joie montaient de l'ombre, et nous écoutions nos cœurs chanter. C'était le temps des fleurs, on ignorait la peur, et le lendemain avait un goût de miel. Ton bras prenait mon bras, ta voix suivait ma voix, on était jeunes.
Love it. Even though Remblechon is Paris. But if you decide to live there, it can be a demanding, high-maintenance relationship. The gossip can be hard work. The municipal that form the control of the interactions of who are brought up through school to be good citizens and maintain themselves in the same role, the same job for really much of their
Chercher la taverne dans mon cœur, tout comme autant de fleurs où l'on vivait sans peur, où chaque jour avait un goût de miel. Ton bras prenait mon bras, ta voix suivait ma voix, on était jeunes, on croyait au ciel. la chanson que la nuit m'apporte. Mon cœur déjà ne la connaît plus. C'était le temps des fleurs, on ignorait la peur. Le lendemain, avec un goût de miel, ton bras prenait mon bras, ta voix suivait ma voix. On était jeunes, l'on croyait au ciel. La la
They know their jobs inside out. Progression opportunities can be limited, so they concern themselves with their interactions. They're not self-obsessed like the British. They're trained in something and they have to stay in that. Retraining is rare. They concern themselves with their social status in terms of gossip. These good citizens form like a Stasi of informants. Perhaps it's a hangover from the Second World War, but I think it's ages old. So it's nice to revisit why you initially fell in love. While France does use an investigating procurer judge judicial system, primarily it's a hue and cry based on the social consensus of the majority. Not the pendulum, remember?
Donnez-moi une suite au Ritz, je n'en veux pas. Des bijoux de chez Chanel, je n'en veux pas. Donnez-moi une limousine, j'en ferai quoi? Offrez-moi du personnel, j'en ferai quoi? Un manoir à Neuchâtel, ce n'est pas pour moi. Offrez-moi la tour Eiffel, j'en ferai quoi? Je veux de l'amour, de la joie, de la bonne humeur. Ce n'est pas votre argent qui fera mon bonheur. Moi je veux crever la main sur le cœur. Allons ensemble découvrir ma liberté. Oubliez donc tous vos clichés. Bienvenue dans ma réalité. J'en ai marre